Hare Krishna, and welcome to this week's virtual Sunday feast here at ISKCON Chicago. Thank you everyone for joining us on behalf of Sri Sri Kishore Kishori and Srila Prabhupada. Big welcome as well to tonight's guest speaker, His Grace Ajita Prabhu, who hails from Kolkata, India, although has had a long history and started his Krishna consciousness here in Chicago. So very excited for you to join. Thank you so much. There's a couple of quick announcements before I turn it over to him. First is a reminder, next weekend, that's November 7th and 8th, there is a weekend seminar, financial planning workshop for devotees. So you're all requested to register in advance if that's something you're interested in participating in. There's already over 75 people registered, so very exciting. So if you haven't yet taken advantage of that opportunity, please do so. Registration is available through the temple email. There's a link, as well as through iskonchicago.com. Also, starting November 10th, there is a Bhakti Shastri course, which is a systematic study of some of the core Vaishnava literature, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita, and Sri Upanishad. And they are going to be led virtually by His Grace Namaruchi Prabhu, as well as His Grace Gajendra Moksha Prabhu. So very exciting opportunity, and you're requested to please register to take advantage of that opportunity as well. Finally, turning it over to Ajita Prabhu, who I'm very proud to introduce. He's going to be taking us through Canto 2, Chapter 4, and it's titled The Creative Conduit. This is a continuation of the Brilliant as the Sun series, where we do a chapter-by-chapter overview of Srimad Bhagavatam. So thank you so much, Ajita Prabhu, especially so early over in Kolkata. Very grateful to you for making time to address this Sunday feast audience. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Ishuddhanandana. Always a pleasure. And thank you very much. Nice to be again connected to my Chicago family. I'll just pray the invocation prayers and get started. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriutapadakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagar Raghunatanitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagan Lalita Shri Vishakanatamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpade Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarabhyascha Kripasindu Bevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So this chapter 4 of Canto 2 in Srimad Bhagavatam is called The Process of Creation. And interestingly enough, this is the chapter where a dying person, right? In Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole thing is Parikshit Maharaj, who is somebody who is at the threshold of his life, is about to, die in 7 days. Such a person is asking some very amazing questions. And there is Parikshit Maharaj, who's a very potent preacher who has the answers, who is giving not only spiritual knowledge, but realization from his heart, that is being, so this is how the process works, right? Srila Prabhupada would give an example that for a child to be born, the man has to be potent and the woman has to be fertile. So same thing in sharing spiritual knowledge, in preaching, etc., is where the preacher, the person giving the spiritual knowledge, should be potent, should have realizations, should be able to clear doubts of the person seeking the answers. And the other side, the person receiving it, should have the eagerness, that's the fertility, should have the eagerness to absorb that knowledge, should be able to ask questions, should be able to apply that, right? So there is potent giver and fertile receiver. And that is the beautiful combination we see here between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadev Goswami. So in this chapter, although it's called the process of creation, we see that there is not much about the details of creation that is given. But this is where, after hearing in the previous chapter, after being uplifted with spiritual knowledge, with pure devotion that Parikshit Maharaj is being receiving from Shukadeva Goswami, in this chapter, he decides to ask Shukadeva Goswami that, what is this creative energy of the Lord? So he says specifically that when Shukadeva Goswami was thus requested by the king, kindly clear up the doubtful inquiries, because you're not only vastly learned in Vedic literatures and self-realized in transcendence, but are also a great devotee of the Lord, and therefore as good as the personality of Godhead. So Parikshit Maharaj is very respectfully, very submissively inquiring that please tell me about this process of creation, how Krishna has created this illusory material world that you keep talking about. And from there on, from text 12 onwards, almost the last text, or the second last text, Shukadeva Goswami starts by glorifying Krishna, the personality of Godhead, the supreme personality of Godhead. And that has very significant importance. Right? It might look like a little bit too much, like, okay, he asked for creation, why don't we just get to the answer? But in our Vaishnava process, it's a personal process. And it's a process where we really care about respecting each and every individual at a higher level, at equal level, or at a lower level. But respect is a fabric of any devotional relationship. So we see Parikshit Maharaj asking very respectfully to Shukadeva Goswami that, yes, you're vastly learned, you're a self-realized soul, so you're the best person to answer this question for me. And on the other side, we see that Shukadeva Goswami, before answering the question, for almost 13 verses, he gives 13 different glorifications of the personality of Godhead. Now, what does that mean? So, generally speaking, I'll give you some personal life examples. As I was growing up in Krishna consciousness, many of you might have read my bio. So Ishadanandan and I started our lives as best friends, as well as business partners. And then eventually, we inspired each other in our Krishna consciousness to eventually, take it up seriously. So as we are business partners, as college entrepreneurs, right? We were still students at the Illinois Institute of Technology. We were going and winning many competitions, business plan competitions. And I'll give you 3 stories that will help you understand the glorification, the power of glorification of the Lord before doing any devotional service. So Ishadanandan and I would go to these competitions. And one of the first competitions that we won was a regional competition in Midwest at the St. Louis University. And there were around 22 different colleges, including some of the best, like University of Chicago and Northwestern and others, that were competing with us. I think even Cornell was somehow managed to get in there. And we were the youngest, and we had no point we would win. So I was very nervous. This was my first big outside the university competition. And I messaged Nityananda Pran Prabhu, who's our mentor. I said, Prabhuji, very nervous. Well, please pray for us. He said, I won't pray for you. Just pray to Krishna that you can use this as a service to him, and do it for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Now, I was completely brand new to Krishna consciousness. This was our second year in college. I had no idea what that meant. Do it for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, but I have 100% faith in Nityananda Pran Prabhu. So I prayed, said, my dear Krishna, I want to do it for your pleasure. I want to do it for your pleasure and Guru's pleasure. I didn't have a Guru yet, but still I was, praying like that. And you won't believe me, we not only went through all the layers, semifinals, finals, we won the first place in entire Midwest, right? And to me, that was Krishna's encouragement. I know Ed and I mean, he's amazingly gifted, but Ishadanandan is amazing. But myself, I was not a good speaker, not even a native speaker. My English was bad. And pitching, business. I was an engineering student. Somehow it worked out. And we were like, wow, Krishna consciousness is quite amazing. So Krishna was encouraging us. Years later, 2013, now graduated from college, doing other things. And so my first TED Talk, this was at, again, my university, TEDxIIT. And I had told them specifically that do not give my slot right after lunch, because after lunch, people are sleepy, they come in late. I want to make sure people are awake when they're listening to me. And somehow or other, they managed to give me the slot right after lunch. So pre-lunch, all the speeches were mind-blowingly amazing. And I was like, wow, I do not stand a chance. This is so not for me. So during lunchtime, we went to Krishna House. Again, Ishanandan and and I told him, look, I'm not going. I don't think I can speak. He said, you should ask Prabhuji. And at that time, Nityananda Pran Prabhu was actually in a GBC meeting and he couldn't take my call. So he texted me back saying, hey, in the GBC meeting, remove yourself from the center and do it for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Again, the same instruction years later. At this time, I knew a little bit more of Krishna consciousness, and I actually had a guru, or I was aspiring for initiation. It was a year before my initiation. So I was like, do it for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, remove myself from the center. And I kept on meditating on that, and I went, and as they were introducing me, Avelo Roy, blah, 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 I was praying, this is for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. And the stage, I looked at it as an altar. And I started glorifying the Lord and glorifying my spiritual master. Got on stage, spoke something. I have no idea what I spoke. People were taking notes. They were laughing. They were clapping. When I came down, there was a lot of people asking me about Bhagavad Gita. Now, this was a TED Talk where they called me multiple times and said, you cannot say the word God. But they said, you can speak about Bhagavad Gita. Fine. You can quote the Gita. Fine. But don't say the three-letter word God. And yet, as I got off the stage, people were asking me about God, about Krishna, about spirituality, about Bhagavad Gita. And I tell you, over the years, this video, this TED Talk video, is called The Currency of Relationship. If you Google it, you'll find it. If you look, this hasn't gotten the millions of views that many TED Talks get. But this one TED Talk got shared so much that it created almost a Bhakti rickshaw online with multiple people from around the world wanting to learn the Bhagavad Gita. And we still, after 5 years, are together, right? Many of them have learned the Bhagavad Gita, became vegetarian, practicing chanting and all of that. One TED Talk, because the instruction was, remove yourself from the center, do it for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Very, very important. Now, again, and now my third story, and I'll end with this story. So this is Janmashtami, right? And I'm dancing in the kirtan. Let me see, there's a question here. Yeah, there's a second canto, Navin Krishna Prabhu. Second canto, fourth chapter. So this is Janmashtami. I'm dancing in the kirtan. And I suddenly turn around and there is His Holiness Ramapal Swami Maharaj right behind me, right? I'm like, oh, wow, right, Maharaj. So Maharaj looked at me. He gave me a flash drive with a note on it. He turned around and walked away. I was like, okay. So I looked at the little note and it gave me there is a slide inside this flash drive. There's 2 or 3 slides, make certain edits and give it back to my room. I was like, oh, that's so easy. It will take me 30 seconds. This was Janmashtami. So I went into the pujari room, opened my laptop, and started working on it, because everybody else, everywhere, people were dancing and there's chaos. The only safe space was the pujari room. And I quickly, turned on the laptop and I was like, I can quickly, this will take you less than a minute to make the changes, because I'm good in PowerPoint. That was my pride speaking, right? And I tell you, I turned on the computer at least 10 to 15 times. And right about to start up, it shut down. Right about to start up, it shut down. And I'm so dull. It took me so many tries to figure out, you know what? Today is a special day, it's Janmashtami. I'm in Pujari room, which is almost the altar. And I'm serving my spiritual master, which is, a very, very significant thing happening on a very significant day in a very significant place. So if my computer is shutting down so many times, this is an indication I'm doing something wrong. I'm not seeing this as devotional service. I'm seeing this as a mundane activity. I paused and I thought to myself, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, oh, I'm proud that I can do this service without any problem. So I was taught that when you pray to Krishna, you pray like this: my dear Krishna, if you so desire, please empower me so that I can serve you and your dear devotees. Although I'm not qualified to serve, although I'm not capable, although my intelligence is gifted by you, and if you so desire, you can empower me to do some service unto you. I tell you, I made this 30-second prayer. I turned on the computer, it turned on. Put in the flash drive, made the changes. It took me less than a minute to make the changes. Went to Maharaj, gave him the flash drive, and I learned a huge lesson that even the smallest of services, if the mood of service is lacking, it was kind of like, for me, I took it as an instruction, as a teaching from Krishna, that even the mood of service is lacking, if this pride, it's not service. So over here in Canto 2 text, Canto 2, chapter 4, you see that Parikshit Maharaj asks a simple question it's not a simple question, but he asks a question that, please tell me about the Lord's creative potency, about creation. I want to know how the Lord, does this wonderful creation, this material world, illusion and everything. Tell me the details of it. And all you see is, for the next 13 verses, our wonderful Shukadev Goswami is glorifying Krishna, glorifying Krishna, glorifying Krishna, glorifying Krishna. And that's what you realize, that the next chapter, actually, he's going to talk about creation, that he's going to talk about the real giving the answer. But before that, he's preparing himself so that he can be the potent giver of spiritual instructions. Shukadev Goswami, although a pure devotee of the Lord, he's preparing himself, his consciousness, so that from his heart, where the spiritual realizations are. So this is how the science of preaching works, right? Shukadev Goswami, who's a devotee, his heart, the realizations are hidden. Parikshit Maharaj, by asking questions, is invoking for that realization to come out from his heart to his lips. So now Shukadev Goswami, based on the question, is going to speak. And those transcendental words are going to enter the ears of Parikshit Maharaj and enter his heart. And as he receives it, as a devotee receives it in their heart, again, they transmits it to another devotee, from their heart to their lips, to the ears, to the heart, right? This is a cyclical process that it goes through. So one heart to another heart, there's a pathway, right? Somebody asks a question that invokes the answer coming from the realizations of the pure devotee. But there's something very beautiful. At the end of this chapter, Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, as he's speaking the glorification of the Lord, the last verse in text 25, he says, my dear king, Brahma, the firstborn, on being questioned on Narada, exactly appraised him on this subject as it had been directly spoken by the Lord to his own son, who was impregnated with Vedic knowledge from his very birth. So again, one of the things that as a Vaishnava, as a devotee who is in a bona fide disciplic succession should be very careful of, is that when you're speaking, no matter how much realizations you have, you should repeat the disciplic succession. You should speak only what you have received from the disciplic succession, and be like a mailman who carries a message from one person to another without changing any content of that mail, right? So here, even though we are talking about the best of the Bhagavatas, the Mahabhagavatas, right? The person from whose words Bhagavata has been created, such a person is also following that principle that, he's mentioning Lord Brahma, that whatever Lord Brahma has spoken that's how I'm going to speak this, right? How Lord Brahma is appraised it when Narad Muni asked him the question. That's my basis for answering. So in the marketplace of spirituality today, there are a lot of people giving gyan, a lot of people even wearing tilak, but they might not be in the disciplic succession. And it is our sincerity as a student of spirituality. We should always find out if they come from disciplic succession. That means we should find out either by questioning or by hearing that what they're saying is a repetition of a bona fide disciplic succession, Guru Shishya Parampara, coming all the way down from Krishna, right? And only then we can receive it. Otherwise, that is not bona fide, and you can take it with a grain of salt. So here we see that so Lord Brahma, luckily he's been mentioned here, and Lord Brahma is actually the head of our disciplic succession. We are called the Brahma Madhava Gauriya Sampradaya. So Lord Krishna directly spoke spiritual knowledge to Lord Brahma at the beginning of creation. That came down to Narad Muni, that came down to Vyasdev, and like that, it has come down to Srila Prabhupada, and through Srila Prabhupada to our gurus and to us, right? So it's a direct chain coming from Lord Krishna. And we see that wonderfully, as Acharya would do, he's setting that example, that not only is he glorifying, but he's also about to repeat what he has learned from Lord Brahma. Now, this is the month of Kartik, and I'm very fortunate to be in the first Sunday feast lecture in Kartik month. There's something that's to be appreciated here, that every evening, most of you probably know, some of you might be new, but most of you probably know that in the evening we sing Damodarashtakam, we offer flowers to the Lord, we offer a ghee lamp to the Lord, etc. Now, a lot of times when you do it every year, year after year, every day, it can become ritualistic. And so I'm going to focus a little bit, because a significant portion of this chapter is glorification of the Lord, by Shukadev Goswami. So I want to kind of unpack that glorification a little bit more. What does that mean? So when we are singing Damodarashtakam, which is basically glorifying the childhood pastimes of Lord Krishna, what is happening here? Are we just offering a ghee lamp because we have heard that it's 10 times or 100 times the benefit in this month, and if I do this, I'll get something good, I'll get a lot of money, I'll get a lot of adoration or whatever? I'm supposed to read some Sanskrit prayers? No. The glorification of the Lord, just like we like to hear somebody appreciating us, right? When we do some service, somebody says, Prabhu, that was an amazing service. We feel encouraged. It's natural for us to feel encouraged. And it also gives us gratitude in our heart. Like, wow, thank you, Krishna. You gave me the empowerment, so there's some appreciation. I take it as appreciation from you. So similarly, when we are appreciating Krishna or we're talking about his pastimes, Krishna is very intently listening. Like, oh, yes, my boyhood pastimes. Oh, Mother Yashoda. Oh, yes, kissing on my cheeks. Oh, and scaring me with her stick. So he's hearing it and he's relishing it. So it's not ritual, it's relish of the Lord. So sometimes it becomes like, okay, done with the Sanskrit prayer, moving on to the next thing. But if we can glorify the Lord, that, my dear Krishna, I want to talk about your childhood pastimes so you can relive it, you can relish it, right? This is for your pleasure. You will notice the amount of happiness that you get in your heart, because Krishna is reciprocating, right? He's Govinda. He's the giver of pleasure to your senses. That's why his name is Govinda, or pleasure of giving pleasure to the cows. So because Krishna is happy when you're giving your heart, right? That's what he's looking for. He doesn't care about the Sanskrit or the English, right? Most of the non-Indian crowd, or even the Indian crowd, might not even say the Sanskrit, right? That's okay. Krishna doesn't care. But what he's hearing is your heart, right? From your heart, you're glorifying the Lord. That, wow, what a beautiful pastime. My dear Lord, I want to please you. This is my offering. Somebody can sing, somebody can help others sing. My service during Damodarashtakam used to be this PowerPoint that would be projected on the screen, right? So I would just hit the laptop button. That was my service. While everybody else is offering lamps, I would hit the laptop button, changing slides from one verse to another. So we all have our little services. But if we do it nicely, That's where Krishna is pleased. And when Krishna is pleased, we feel happy, because that's the root. That's why you put the water in the root. And when Krishna is pleased, everyone is pleased. If we try to please anyone and everyone and try to please, it doesn't work like that, right? Even you see in elections coming up with all the politicians trying to pander to all kinds of segments, the Hispanics, the African Americans, the this and the that, and all kinds of things, right? Nobody's able to please anyone. People know these are politicians. They're going to say what they want, what we want to hear. But the point is, even if you please Krishna, you, to whatever degree that intensity is there, you become attractive like Krishna, because Krishna is all attractive. Akarshati iti Krishna. So that attractive nature of Krishna comes through you. Srila Prabhupada being such an amazing example. And if you look at it, Srila Prabhupada didn't have enemies, right? Pure devotees don't have enemies. And that's because they are not envious of Krishna. They're basically emissaries of Krishna's mercy, right? So why? Because they're glorifying Krishna with every breath. In fact, one time, there was a businessman. He came to meet Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was counting money. This was probably in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada was counting money because the temples of Vrindavan, Mumbai, and other places were being built. And he was allocating like, hey, 2 lakhs goes here, 5 lakhs goes there. He was allocating funds. And the businessman looking at Srila Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, there is not much difference between what I do and what you do. I count money all day long. I am allocating funds here and there for projects, and you're doing the same thing. And Srila Prabhupada invited him. He said, come to the side of the table and put your ears on my shoulder as I speak. And this businessman, he put his ears on Srila Prabhupada's shoulder. And he was amazed that with every breath Srila Prabhupada was taking, breathing in, breathing out, and he was speaking to other people like, here is money for this and money for that project. Every breath was, this businessman could hear, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, right? And then he realized the difference between him and Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada, even though it seems like he's apparently doing mundane work, counting money and allocating funds, every breath is glorification of Krishna. Now, we are not there. I'm not there. I can speak for myself, right? But that's what it becomes with a lifetime of service, with a lifetime of glorification, with a lifetime of intense desire. My dear Krishna, I want to please you. I want to serve you. I want to glorify you. That every breath becomes a glorification of the Lord. Even if one might not directly say Krishna this and Krishna that and Bhagavatam this and Bhagavatam that. A lot of times there's a misconception that, when you're in the corporate world, which 96% of ISKCON is, right? People are working. Only 4% of ISKCON is brahmacharis. The rest of the people are grahastas and working. And people think that, you can be in the corporate world and you cannot glorify Krishna. You can be in family life and you cannot glorify Krishna. You can be in social life and you cannot glorify Krishna. Let's cut off ourselves and be in our little bubble of devotees, right? If that was the case, why did Srila Prabhupada leave Vrindavan to come to New York? Why did he send all his devotees to even countries like Pakistan and China, right? Where, apparently there's not much religious freedom. So, I'm not trying to make a political statement here, but the point is the intention is we're not supposed to be in our bubble. We are supposed to be out there glorifying Krishna. But that doesn't necessarily mean we have to say Krishna, right? Our character, the way we are representing Krishna consciousness in a lot of people's lives, whether it's our core family or extended family or our colleagues or our friends, social life, etc. Everybody is looking at us. This guy is from ISKCON. He is a spiritual person. He believes in God. What does that look like? Let's find gotcha, right? People are looking. And that's where we have to be careful with our character, with our kindness, with our compassion, with our ability to help others, to be a good citizen. It is our duty to represent Srila Prabhupada in the best possible way. And that is preaching. So people think preaching is all about Krishna this, Krishna that, Bhagavatam this, Bhagavad Gita that. But just to give you an example, to corroborate what I'm saying, Srila Prabhupada was one time introduced to um, a sports car racer, a very famous, world famous sports car racer. And for 2 hours, this person and Srila Prabhupada kept on talking about sports cars and racing and sports. And at the end, Prabhupada gave a little spiritual context, a little bit of spiritual knowledge, maybe for the last 5 minutes. But this man, he got up and he told Srila Prabhupada disciples, like, wow, I thought this would be a boring discussion with a Swamiji. But this Swamiji knows about sports as much as any athlete. And I'm so inspired to have met him that he speaks my language. Now, what does that mean? That means Prabhupada spoke his language and he felt connected to Srila Prabhupada. And that's all it takes. Bhakti comes from a bhakta. That fact that person was glorifying Srila Prabhupada, that was his sukriti, that was his devotional service that he was gaining in this lifetime. He spent 2 hours with a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada. And he appreciated Srila Prabhupada. And not only that, he felt connected, so he would come back again to hear Srila Prabhupada. And that is preaching. One might say, wow, what a sannyasi is talking about sports cars. That is so much maya. No, that is preaching. When you can relate to other people, when you can speak their language, when you can capture their hearts, and once the heart is captured, then give them Krishna consciousness. You cannot go around with a hammer hitting people on the head. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, here, take this Gita, or else you're going to hell. We don't do that. That is not Sanatan Dharma. That is maybe other religious organizations, maybe, but not the Sanatan Dharma that I know of, and definitely not Srila Prabhupada's teachings. We are not here to hammer people with philosophy. We are here to compassionately, relatably, lovingly connect with living entities without an agenda, in a prayerful mood. Then, my dear Krishna, like, our Shukadeva Goswami is beautifully praying that, my dear Krishna, you're the best. You're in everyone's heart. If you so desire, maybe you can allow me to say something, do something that brings out the bhakti in this person that is in dormant stage, right? And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of a devotee preaching. There's a nice saying by Saint Francis of Assisi. He says, preach all day and say a few words if you have to. What does that mean? That means preach with your example, with your character, with your personality. And if you have to say a few words, then maybe, right? Whereas we think it's all about the words, but when it comes to character, when it comes to actually doing things, it might not be. There's a senior god sister of mine, Mother Krishna Leela. She was on the board of education in the city of New York. And she was directly working with the mayor of New York, very high position, being a psychologist and being an educationist, right? But there was one time the mayor said, we have budget cuts and we have to dissolve this board and all of you are going to be jobless. The entire board, everybody else was kind of like, oh, how could he do that? This is very unfair. And they were all chaos. And Krishna Mataji was typing out, she was working, she was doing what she was doing. And one of her colleagues walked up to her and said, how are you so calm? We all just lost our job. How are you so calm? And she's like, I'm still getting paid for this month, so might as well finish my work. Like, yeah, I understand you're being ethical, but everybody's angry at the mayor and you're not shouting, you're not yelling, you're calm. You have to find something else to do. She said, yeah, true. But my spiritual foundation helps me see things from a different vantage point. It allows me to see that my maintainer is not the mayor. My maintainer is God. And somehow or other, he will take care of me. So I'm not worried. And this colleague was actually known to hate the Hare Krishnas, and she had no clue that Mother Krishna Leela was a devotee. So she said, what's your spiritual background? She's like, you don't want to know. No, tell me, what's your spiritual background? No, you don't want to know. No, I want to know. No, you won't like it. No, I want to know. Tell me. Well, I'm a Hare Krishna. Really? You're a Hare Krishna? My college friends, they would leave college to join the Hare Krishna movement. I thought they were escapists. But you're a thriving member of the community. You're one of the best psychologists, educationalists that I know of. How come you're a Hare Krishna? Well, you had a different opinion of the Hare Krishnas. We are very active members of society, but our philosophy allows us to see the world in a different way. And that created a dialogue between Mother Krishnalila and her colleague. And turns out her colleague's husband was dying of cancer. She had to, she was going to lose her insurance, and she didn't know how to take care of her husband. She was destroyed, devastated. But this was her way of getting reintroduced to Krishna consciousness, which she thought in her college days was meant for escapists, but now seeing a wonderful, a person of character, a person of ethics, a person of great credibility, that, Hare Krishna devotees are like this also. So maybe there is some value to it. I want to learn more, right? And I think later on she met with her spiritual master as well. And but the point is, that is the beauty of preaching with your example rather than preaching with your words. And it happens when there is a prayerful mood behind any interaction. So when you start in your day, just like here, Shukadev Goswami is giving knowledge to Parikshit Maharaj. So in your case, you might be working as a software engineer or an IT professional or as a doctor or as an engineer or a student, right? But when you start your day, you can be in the same Shukadev Goswami mindset and glorify Krishna before you start your day. My dear Krishna, all the intelligence and the ability that I'm going to use in this work, you are the source. Without you, nothing can happen. If you so desire, kindly empower me that I can do this activity as a service unto you, and I can remember you throughout the day. Please empower me that anybody who comes in contact with me, that you being in my heart, somehow or other, they also get some aspect of bhakti in their lives. Please empower me, my dear Krishna. And whatever check you get at the end of the month, my dear Krishna, you've empowered me. This is all, you're the source of all sources. This comes from you, and this belongs to you. So allow me to use this money in your service, right? So every moment is a moment of gratitude. Every moment is a moment of prayer. And every moment can allow you to connect with Krishna in a prayerful mood. And thus, not only you get purified, but anybody around you, even the cockroaches and the ants and the mosquitoes and the plants and whoever living entities around you will get, influenced by that Krishna consciousness. Now we are obviously, I can say I am a very tiny insignificant devotee, and most of us are not pure devotees that are listening to this. But there are pure devotees like Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, who, when they would write poetry glorifying Krishna and Krishna's pastime of meeting Srimati Radharani, there would be an impact on the environment. The birds would start chirping. The trees would have fruits and flowers. They would be, it completely green and nourished. And when Rupa Goswami would write of Krishna's separation from the gopis and Srimati Radharani, the birds would stop chirping. The trees would drop their leaves. And there was an impact on the environment just by the mood of how Srila Rupa Goswami is feeling about Krishna, right? So, of course, it's the extreme level of such a pure devotee. But at our level also, we are impacting our environment, our family, our colleagues, whether we know it or not. And the more prayerful our mood is in whatever we do, whether it's working, whether it's taking care of a family, whether it's taking care of maybe disciplining a child, whether it's taking care of, doing any service, if there is a mood of prayer before we do that service, you will see magic happen. And prayer requires us to hit the pause button first, because we go with the flow. And you know who else goes with the flow? Dead fish. Dead fish goes with the flow. But a live fish can choose to go against the flow or, with the flow. So first we have to hit the pause button. Think, What am I doing? Is it service? Oh, I remember when, again, I'm mentioning my mentors, because I have been very fortunate to have spent a lot of time with them growing up in my Krishna consciousness. So I used to spend my winter breaks, 20, 21 days in Palatine House of Nityananda Prabhu and Hemagi Mataji. And I remember one time, Prahlad, being a 2-year-old, was being a little naughty. And in their house, they're the best parenting ever, right? No yelling, no shouting, nothing. And sometimes Hemagi Mataji would feel a little bit of like, my dear Krishna, please allow me to be in the mood of service so I can discipline my child. And I found that amazing. I'm like, whoa, parents lash out on their kids, right? Without thinking, because it's my kid. I have the right to do whatever I want. And here she was seeing Prahlad, the 2-year-old boy, as a devotee. And wow, my dear Krishna, please give me the mood of service so I can, discipline my child. And the discipline, highest thing was put him on a high chair, maybe for 5 minutes, right? But that had so much impact on Prahlad. He never needed any kind of punishment, because just an eyebrow raise of his parents, he would be like, did I upset you? Oh my God, did I upset you? And I've never seen a 2-year-old feeling that kind of feeling, right? Like a little bit of eyebrow raised, no shouting, no yelling, nothing. And that's the kind of impact you have when you do any service, whether it's taking care of children, taking care of your spouse, or doing a work in your colleague, with your manager, whoever, because Super Soul is within, Paramatma is within. And when you pray to Paramatma, amazing things happen. When you pray to Krishna, Krishna is in every living entity. Amazing things happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to some of the prayers of Shukadev Goswami and kind of unpack those prayers. So we are in Canto 2, text chapter 4. I'm going to go to text number 15. Here, Shukadev Goswami is saying, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all auspicious Lord Shri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. Right? So again, coming back to the month of Kartik and praying Damodarashtakam, or glorifying Krishna, or sharing Krishna consciousness with others. A lot of us are doing book distribution. It's coming up, right? For Diwali, gifting books and sponsoring books. It's on our website, iskonchicago.com. You can go check it out under events section. So a lot of devotees are doing book distribution. A lot of devotees are arranging so others can offer ghee lamps to Krishna. A lot of devotees are doing kirtan programs, preaching programs. It's fantastic, right? It's not only helping us, but according to our dear Shukadev Goswami, that glorification, remembrance, prayers, hearing, worship, all of this cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. Not only we are doing it, we're helping others do it, which is even better. And I'll give you a nice story. I'm giving a lot of stories for personal example. So His Holiness Badrinaran Swami, one of my favorite inspiring devotees at ISKCON. So when I started the Krishna house, he was still Badrinaran Prabhu at the time. He had not taken sannyas. So he came to Krishna house. He said, I want to see Ajita, what you're doing with Krishna house. He went up, he saw the 3-story building. We were having kirtan program. And as he was going back into his car, all the students were coming in, gushing into Krishna house. And he kept on looking at the students, and standing on that grass outside Krishna house, he said, Ajita, Radharani has a radar. Did you know that? I said, no. He said, yeah, Radharani has a beautiful radar. And you are on her radar. I said, really? Like, yeah, you're on Radharani's radar. Because somehow or other, you're using whatever Krishna has given you to bring others to Krishna consciousness. And so Radharani is looking at you and telling Krishna, my dear Krishna, look, this Ajita is doing such nice service. Give him your mercy. Please give him your mercy. Krishna, give him your mercy. I tell you, coming from a pure personality, a Vaishnav, somebody I look up to in Krishna consciousness, it meant so much. Even though I was completely insignificant, I was nothing. I was doing maybe 1% of what I should be doing. But just hearing that little service I was on Radharani's radar for bringing others to Krishna consciousness, right? That's what this is. It's not just that remembrance of Krishna and worship of Krishna and glorification of Krishna helps us purify ourselves, but it purifies everyone around us. And when we help others do it, it purifies them, and we get some special mercy. In Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 18, Krishna says that there is nobody more dear to me than that devotee who shares this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to others, right? Now, do we want to be that devotee whose no is the most dearest to Krishna? Yes. And the secret to doing that is whatever we do, we bring others in contact with Krishna. And we have to be creative about it. We cannot hit people with the hammer. No, that's not how we do it. We do it by being relatable, by speaking people's language, but carrying Krishna in the heart, being truthful, being honest, being respectful, being an example of Krishna consciousness. And by doing so, people will want to know, who are you? How do you get these? What's your source? And that's the preaching opportunity for you to share the glories of Krishna consciousness, right? And that's where things open up. Ishodanandana, should I open up for questions for a few minutes that we have?
Sure, you're welcome to.
Okay. Do you want to add something to this? Something I missed, something you're inspired?
Well, I wanted to appreciate the beautiful presentation and emphasis on glorification. I guess by nature, I'm a little more analytical. So I was also thinking as you were talking, like some different concepts were coming to mind, like that Shukadeva Goswami is a pure devotee of the highest caliber, and he still prepares the response with that glorification. It was especially interesting because he's talking about material nature, or asking about the process of creation and material nature. And it was really nice how Shukadeva Goswami's glorification was about Krishna in relation to his energy. So just making it very clear for our benefit that Krishna is never subordinate to his energy. He's still that creator. And so from just understanding that, I was seeing this glorification not only as a prep for ourselves, but also a prep for, like, if we're speaking, but also a prep for us as a listener, because Shukadeva Goswami could make all these nice points, but without properly establishing the position of the person being inquired about, we lose a whole new dimension, a whole other dimension of what he's going to be sharing. So that was really nice. Like just the emphasis on, you can't understand creation without understanding the creator.
Beautiful.
I know, it's an exciting chapter, and thank you for presenting it so nicely.
Sure. So if there's anybody questions, if you can just share if there's any questions from anyone.
Okay. Let's see. I'm not seeing any on YouTube, but generally what I do then is, if there are no questions, I invite you as the speaker to offer concluding remarks. And just for everyone listening on YouTube or joining us here in Zoom, we have a special treat as the first Sunday feast in the month of Kartik. Her Grace Radhakund Mataji and her son Vedant will be leading us in the Damodar Ashtakam. So we can't get together in the Chicago temple, unfortunately, because of the current situation, but Krishna always makes the impossible possible. So here we are together after this talk for a virtual Damodar Ashtakam.
Fantastic.
Invite you to please share your concluding thoughts on this.
Okay, awesome. So I'll end with another story. And this time, so we spoke a lot about glorification from a devotee's vantage point, that we glorify purification, it allows us to do our services wonderfully. And here's how Krishna feels, right? So I'll end with a Jagannath story. So there used to be in Jagannath Puri, a little bit away from the temple, there is a beautiful garden of flowers that are used for Jagannath's worship. And there used to be the little girl that every day would be plucking these flowers and singing glorifications of Lord Jagannath. And somehow or other, the pujaris in the temple
somehow they would find that Jagannath, his clothes are kind of torn, right? There's dirt around, and they would wonder why, what's happening. And turns out, I'm just making this a long story short, that every day Jagannath would be running to that flower garden to hear this little girl glorifying Lord Jagannath in her through her singing. And Lord Jagannath, so that shows that how eager Krishna is to hear his glorification. So the Lord leaves his temple to run to listen to his devotees from a pure heart glorifying him. And it is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam in future cantos that Krishna says that wherever there's glorification of me, that's where I am. That's where my devotees are, and that's where I am. And one of my favorite verses, it says that Parasparanu Kathanam Pavanam Bhagavat Yashaha Mithorute Matha Tushtir Nirvitir Atmanaha. So when friends get together, right, generally what happens is, materially speaking, friends get together, there's gossip and there's all kinds of conversation. But when devotee friends get together, and Pavanam Bhagavat Yashaha, the glories of the Lord, the pure glories of the Lord, when that is being relished and nourished, what happened? Mithoratir, Mithatushtir. So Rati, as in deep connection with the Lord, is created when devotees together, like we're going to hear the Damodarashtakam shortly. We're going to all sing together, right? So when devotees come together to glorify the Lord, there's a great amount of attachment for Krishna that is created within the heart. And also Mithatushtir. So there is immense satisfaction within the heart that is achieved. And Nirvittir Mithoatmanaha. All the bad habits that are there, one, friends say, hey, from today, I'm going to give up this bad habit. And the other friend says, inspired by you, I'm also going. So not only we develop, not only Krishna comes running to hear his glorification, but also we are able to get rid of negative attachments and negative habits that we might have had. And I've actually tried this out. So Balaram Prabhu shared this, is to share this Jagannath stories. I love hearing Jagannath stories from Balaram Prabhu. And this actually story was also given by him only. So I was trying to try this out, that, okay, let me see if I can help somebody get rid of their addiction. And one Russian devotee, or Russian student rather, one day walks into the temple, and my service was standing at the gate and say, Hare Krishna, welcome to ISKCON Chicago. I did the same to him. And he said, can you help me learn about spirituality? I said, sure. So we spoke, seemed like he was a very eager student. So I said, come to Krishna House, we'll talk more. So he started coming to, he would drive to Krishna House almost an hour from where I used to live. I think Buffalo Grove or somewhere, right? And he would hear about Krishna consciousness. And he said, well, I have some issues. I said, what? He said, yeah, I didn't name him. So good. He said, I have kleptomania, which means I am addicted to stealing. I hallucinate because I'm addicted to drugs. And I have some other problems also, that I'm dealing with. I said, okay, doesn't matter. All that can go away with chanting. So he very seriously, started chanting together, and we started, studying scriptures. But being a, American person, of course, Russian origin, but born and brought up in America, he was like, well, I want to do something for Krishna. I want to do something for you. I said, well, you can bring whatever you want for Krishna, bhoga and whatnot. So he would bring bhoga. And then he said, I'll teach you how to swim, because there was a swimming pool in Krishna. So in the swimming pool, he would teach me how to swim, and I would teach him Bhagavad Gita in the swimming pool. And by doing this, there was such a transformation in this person's heart, right? One day he was, on one floor of Krishna, I was in the above floor. He said, well, don't leave me alone with these things. I'm used to stealing. I said, I trust you. And this person not only overcame his addiction to stealing by taking on glorification of Krishna, but he actually got to the Chicago Police Department. So from stealing to becoming a cop, right? and got into law enforcement. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. That's the beauty of glorification of the Lord, because that's the transformation it has in the heart, as rightly said by Shukadeva Goswami. All are sinful. He didn't say any or some. He said all actions are dissolved when we glorify Krishna. But to the intensity we do that, to that intensity, so it happens. And I invite you to glorify Krishna through Damodar Ashtakam, as it's going to start shortly. There's a question here. Amara Devi Dasi. She's saying, Hare Krishna, I feel that I have a desire to bring people to Krishna consciousness that becomes a purpose to imbibe good qualities. But cultivation of good qualities can have a natural goal of pleasing Krishna. This makes me feel that I have an agenda to bring people to Krishna consciousness. So I am exhibiting good qualities. How to get over this feeling and just let things grow and flow naturally. Um, the way I have done this is out of duty rather than out of agenda. It's out of duty that somebody has been very kind to give me Krishna consciousness. Causeless mercy has come in my life. And it is my duty out of gratitude to give it forward. And that's what I'm doing. Now, it's up to the person whether they want to receive it or not, or they receive it after 5 years or after 10 lifetimes. It's up to them. But it's my duty unconditionally to offer what I have received to the other person, to please Krishna, and to show gratitude to the disciplic succession. So when it comes out of duty, and the focus is for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, right? There was one time I was dealing with a certain situation where a certain group of devotees were not very respectful to me. And I went up to my spiritual master and said, can I stop extending myself to them because they don't appreciate me? And Maharaj said, no, keep extending yourself, keep serving them, because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, right? So that's the mood. It's not an agenda. It's not for glorification. It's not for anyone. It's for making Kishore Kishori smile. And when they smile, everybody else smiles. And that's what the goal of our glorification is, to see the Lord smile, because that's Govinda. When he smiles, all our senses are pleased. The whole world gets affected by Krishna smiling. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna. And she just wrote, thank you so much, Prabhu. This helps. So thank you so much, Ajita Prabhu, for joining us. And also for that nice tee up to the Damodar Ashtakam as a beautiful glorification of Krishna and his childhood pastimes. So I'm going to turn it over now to Radhakund Mataji to lead us in Damodar Ashtakam, and everyone on Zoom and YouTube, you're welcome to stay and participate, though just a request for everyone on Zoom to please remain muted. Just with audio delays, it sounds really off to have call and response kirtan online. So please remain muted, though you're welcome to turn your cameras on. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining for this Damodar Ashtakam. I invite you to join us next week as well. The Sunday feast will be given by His Grace Jai Jagannath Prabhu, followed once again with Damodar Ashtakam. Hare Krishna.